Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk of the Town. It's nice to see you again. You know who I am. My name's Karen Bukes, and tonight I'm your host. And let's see, Saturday is Election Day, and I hope you go out and vote. It's very important. Polls are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Make sure you go out and vote, and if anybody's out there in 7, I'm on the ballot. Please vote for me. I would appreciate it very much. Now, tonight, aside from our standard wonderful underwriters like Cape Auto and Cape Auto Body and Wrestling Brewster Wrestling with Computers, and what's the other one? Trifletti and Costa, wonderful lawyers, and Jeff Cohen, One Stop Painting. We have a new underwriter. Matter of fact, we have 2. And it's Salon Evolution right there on State Road across from the Pepsi plant. Salon Evolution, you'll see their tag at the end of the show. What a beautiful salon. Absolutely took my breath away. Great prices, don't worry about that. And I want to give a shout out to my hairdresser, Sarah Linehan, who's at Salon Evolution on State Road in Sagamore on the Plymouth line. But it's right there and it's beautiful. And Stoll's Cafe in Manomet. Fabulous sandwiches. It used to be Big Al's by the post office there. Fabulous. He does a ginger cranberry bread toasted with chicken salad. Absolutely delicious, melt in your mouth. I recommend them highly. But tonight you're in for a wonderful treat. We have a wonderful guest here. Kenny and I adore him. He has his own radio show on the Cape. I believe it's 95.1. And he's on every Saturday. He should be on more often. He has a little bit different views than I do, but I love him as a person, and he comes with great credentials. He's owned a number of restaurants, and we're going to get into a wonderful conversation. Please welcome Don McKeag.
Good evening. How are you, Karen? That was pretty nice.
Thank
you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Nice to see you.
You know, I do listen to you on Saturday mornings, and you're on.
Do you last the full 2 hours?
No, because I'm running around. Kenny lasts the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
He does. Believe me. And there's a lot of people. I got a Facebook text and from a bunch of people who said that they love you and they listen to you.
We have a very nice, we have a lot of Plymouth listeners because they're a Plymouth college. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the show.
You should be.
Yeah.
You're very experienced. You were a teacher. You've owned restaurants. Tell us some of the restaurants you've owned.
Well, the first restaurant I owned was the Asa Burris House on Main Street in Hyannis,
Loved it.
which was a former ladies' tea room called the Beechwood Inn.
Yep.
But my history in restaurants goes back to the Skipper in West Yarmouth.
Oh.
So it's
Way
when I was
back.
12 or 13, South Yarmouth, pardon me, on South Shore Drive, right across from the water. It's a nice, it's still there.
Oh.
And my poor dad, he went through 2 hurricanes in 3 years when the Cape was strictly 10 weeks.
Oh,
So he lost
wow.
his shirt, but it got me interested in the restaurant business. And of course, I played piano too. So I
I've
played
heard
in
you.
different places.
Yep.
And that's how I also got into the restaurant business. But
You're actually a very good piano player.
Well, no,
And
I
you
just-
sing.
I do a kind of a, get by, but with the singing. But I played in some wonderful places. And then the second restaurant was the Flying Bridge on the water in Falmouth,
Right,
which
another one.
I always regretted kind of selling because I was too young. Somebody came in and offered me a lot of money, and I took it. But then I had the Backside Saloon in
I remember that
Hyannis,
one,
which was a
too.
great little place, and I took that because I thought it was small, but I really had restaurants had run their course by then. You know. And I did real estate. I did a lot of rehabbing old homes. I'm very historically oriented.
Yes, you are.
And I'm always sad when I see it's one of the things I love about Plymouth.
The
I have
history.
friends in Plymouth that I tell, gee, I was a Cape Cod guy. I lived down there. Of course, I live now in Carver, but I lived on the Cape in 3 or 4 different places and loved it. And I never really paid much attention or spent much time in Plymouth. But since I've been in Carver, it truly is wonderful. It's
Well,
a wonderful, but I love the history.
You love
but I
the
also love
history.
the town.
Thank
the
you
town.
so much.
That's the truth. It's beautiful.
And you had the Cranebrook.
And then my final, my Waterloo, we will say, was the Cranebrook, which of course.
Well, the economy hit.
Well, and one of the things that's nice is I hear from a lot of people who miss it.
Yeah.
And I hear almost every week from someone. And I know we did a good job, but the first 2 years we did well. But it is like this winter. I'm doing some restaurant consulting on the Cape.
Good.
Well, it isn't because it's very sad. These restaurants, individually owned businesses, are really under the gun because people forget when you get bad weather and you're not doing any revenue, not only does the owner of the business, but the employees.
Yeah.
And this was the kind of winter that put me out of business because it was a December where we lost 8 Christmas parties.
Oh.
We lost New Year's Eve, all to weather. So you just can't absorb. And all retail this winter has suffered. And then on top of that, Karen, the utility bills are sky high because of the heat being on all the time.
Don't talk to me.
I know.
The oil bill, and we don't put it up.
No, a lot of people are walking around with their
Sweaters
thermostats down and wearing sweatsuits,
Right.
in their house.
I know, but
But that's the restaurant history.
now you're going to have a show right here on PAC TV,
Yes, we are. Yeah.
and Lucky Star Productions is going to produce it. Kenny is going
Ken
to.
Bukes is going to be my
And now you
producer.
have your own style. And
yes. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and it's a call-in show.
It'll be a call-in show, and I hope to be.
And live. Well, of course,
Well,
if
it'll
you're
be
calling.
live. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I tell you, I'm committed to not just my viewpoints, but at this stage in my life, I am so terribly concerned for young families today and for people who they just don't know what's been taken away from them. And it's very definable. And I'm just concerned, and I'm not saying that I feel I can do much to change it, but at least I will not go quietly into the night.
Into the night.
So that's why when Kenny asked and they asked here at the station, I said yes, because I'd like to at least try to help.
Yeah, and
be informative.
And be well. That's what you make. You make people aware of what's going on. But you were also great friends with the Kennedys.
Yes, I was.
Ted Kennedy.
Ted Kennedy and some of the others. Young John.
I mean, you lived right across the street.
I lived right up the hill from him. Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, I used to take a lot of heat when I was on the radio every morning because I disagreed with his policies, but of course, Jack Kennedy is the one that was the first president that I was able to vote for,
Yeah, me
and I
too.
was so excited about him.
Yeah.
And, to think, Democrats, I was a Democrat, I'm not anymore. I am apolitical. I think I don't like the party system anymore, but we're stuck with it. But the Democratic Party is so far from Jack Kennedy's, ask not what your country's going to do for you. What are you going to do for your country? And you look at government. I mean, they want to get involved in everything. And Ted, Ted was part of that socialistic move toward healthcare. And again, I just believe in the old adage, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, you have to think through these programs and make sure,
there
first
are
of all,
consequences.
well, you have to make sure, what I don't like in the liberal culture is that they have these great ideas, but they never manage them properly. That's never important. They move on to another
that's a very
program.
good point. It's not the idea, it is how to implement that idea properly. And that's what's not being done. And I will say both parties do that.
Oh, they do. That's why I'm not.
I'm disgusted with both
because
of
they
them.
want to get elected, and unfortunately, we do not. Again, we have not learned from the past, and so we're doomed to repeat it. And that's where this country, I firmly believe, is, and why it's so dangerous. And again, I don't suggest that I can do anything. I believe the horse has the bit between its teeth, and we're in for a very, very tough spell. And it's people my age group that say they care about their grandkids and their kids, and yet they vote for the same people. I'm not saying, party politics
stinks. I voted for Democrats too,
Yeah.
Don.
Well, I worked in Ted Kennedy's campaign against Mitt Romney, and then I became very friendly with Mitt, and I had him on, my show a couple of times. I liked him very much.
But you were very close with Ted.
Oh, and he was a wonderful. I don't care with and I rise to his. I've never met a person that was as kind, considerate, funny.
He was.
And truly caring. I mean, truly, if the truth ever were known about all the things he did for so many people. With
That's right.
We used to go sailing and we'd take a dozen blind children, no press, no nothing. And we'd have these, Thanksgiving parties for the poor.
Yeah.
And all of it not reported. He
didn't want it that way.
And, he was a human being. But one of the things that I am so adamant about protecting is that man should not be judged by one terrible accident in Chappaquiddick, Martha's Vineyard. He did too many other things. But for some, nothing he could do was ever good enough.
I know. It's,
and that's the human quality that I don't like. And that's one of the reasons I don't like double standards that we see in the press. It seems as though if Democrats screw up, it's reported as quickly and as shortly as it can, and then they move on. If it's a Republican, it throws them out of office. And that, to me, is just unacceptable. You treat both parties the same, and you don't have a problem with me. But
I get it, but, you know, some of those Republicans were, you know, I'm talking federally.
Oh, I am too.
You
I
know,
am too.
they jackasses. And they're their own worst enemy. So,
yeah, but there's also some very good ones who are demeaned.
That's why I
I
said some.
And, you know, we have a few in the Democratic Party that aren't the brightest bulbs in the chandelier.
Yeah,
And they've got top jobs. But anyway,
that's why I like
part of
local
what we
politics, because there's not supposed to be any label. And people just do good. Like, we have a fellow here who's running for a higher office. His name is Matt Moratori. He's running for rep. And Matt...
Which I did, by the way. Did you know that?
Yes.
Dukes County, boy, that was an experience. But anyway, we'll get back to that.
Okay, we will. And he's very fair in what he does.
Yes.
So that, I mean... Do you think you could be fair in let's say when the union comes to you and wants to negotiate?
Of course I can be. I was a union man in education. I worked at Four River Shipyard.
Oh, my dad did too.
I'm not anti-unions, but I'm anti-greed, in no matter how you paint it. And to me, there has been a shift from equaling the playing field into an out-and-out greed. And that is, no matter what the towns are spending for schools or police departments, police buildings or fire buildings, the public unions continue to want money. And I believe that is at the point. It used to be, when I taught school, we didn't make a lot of money. We worked in the summers, and we expected it. And to be very frank with you, and my first wife was a teacher, and I loved it. I loved the kids. I loved the people I worked with. And I never expected, nor did I go into teaching, to make a lot of money or retire at 56 with a lot of money in a retirement, which is the case today.
But can I tell you something? You're going to have a show here in Plymouth.
Yeah, sure.
I want you to know about Plymouth.
I know a lot about Plymouth.
Plymouth is 103 square miles.
Yeah.
It's the lowest paid fire department. I'm not sure about the police department.
Yep.
The teachers aren't making that much here. I'm talking Plymouth.
Yeah.
Compared to Falmouth or someplace else. No, Falmouth is smaller. Plymouth is a big town. We have to take care of a lot of people. So, you know, when these young men and ladies get off their training and they put in for a job for Plymouth, they look at the pay scale and they go to Kingston or they go someplace else. You've got to know that.
Well, I want to tell you, though. When I was in the restaurant business, and anyone that's watching now that is in small business, now you take this winter. This is what I would point out to those who, you know, are supportive of these automatic raises to government employees. If you're in small business, now in my restaurant, I had to put a $62,000 septic system in.
You did?
Yes.
$62,000.
Then I had to do the roof, and I did the deck, all of which I did a new heating system. Now, that's fine. That's part of doing business. But do you think that I gave myself a raise or that I could pay the employees? And yet now, the costs of buildings, and that's why I bring up Plymouth, they're going to build another school. The town of Carver, they've had a school voted down twice, and they're going to still jam it down people's throat. Now it's not, I am not against school. I was a teacher, 12 years. I want the best for kids, but when did we lose any financial fiscal responsibility in school committees and others? Now, I'm not saying that all are this way, but you cannot build $60 million school, and then have the teachers' unions, when their salaries are more than the same type of salary in the private sector, all of a sudden they go for raises.
But see, I'm not sure if I buy into this private sector versus the pub. You're talking apples and oranges.
Oh, no, we're not. We're all paying. We're paying a discriminatory rate in the private sector versus the public sector. I'm saying, you take this winter. Do the public unions care about the cost now to town buildings for heating? In the winters, the lights are higher. The cost of gasoline. The cost of insurance. One of the things that is never conveyed when they give these large raises to any employees, but I mean, I don't care if it's a town or if it's a small restaurant. People forget that every employer matches whatever is withheld in Social Security. Now, my little restaurant in Carver was $600 a week it cost me in matching Social Security funds on top of the payroll. So people don't know. When you just decide, oh, we're going to give this assistant principal a raise to $98,000 from 82, that's $16,000, whatever the Social Security. It's not just going to be those raises. And you add up all of the salaries in individual towns on top of the raise itself, and then on top of capital expenditures in new buildings, and you're in trouble. And this country's in deep trouble. Never mind the insurance costs.
Well, I'm going to give you an example.
People don't know this. See, what bothers me is we have a competence void today. The reason the word selectman came about is they were selectmen. They were people who were successful in business and in finance, that the public had confidence they knew how to spend a buck. Now, just because a woman's got 6 kids, she's qualified to be on the school committee with no background. I've seen this all the time.
Well,
this is that kind of, I'm sorry. Here we go. No, but this is that kind of irrational thinking that's based on feelings. You can't say no to people. Well, that's not the American way. Well, wait a minute. Is the American way to have incompetent people holding the purse strings of all those hard-working kids with their 2 kids? I see these young women and men, their families that Stop and Shop and other markets, and I see what they're driving, and I see their wagons and what it costs them.
Yeah, but you're balling up everything into one lump. And you know that I...
Well, I like things in a lump.
Yeah, in a lump. But let me tell you about Plymouth. Plymouth school system put in solar so they would not have those large bills. And they've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars to the taxpayer by doing that. When you talk about Plymouth department heads, they are held under a strict rule by the town manager and the selectmen. They have to keep their budgets in line. So I don't know what happens in other towns, but I know what happens here.
Well, I mean, I plead guilty to not knowing specifically about Plymouth, other than I know how much money the town meeting, about 10 years ago, was $92 million, and then they've got more expenditures for another school and all, and then salaries have automatic raise. I don't care if it's 3%. There are other people who haven't had a raise of any kind for 5 years.
But you know AD Makepeace.
Sure.
AD Makepeace is building hundreds of homes. So is the Pine Hills. Pine Hills, though, they not a lot of children, but AD Makepeace. That means services are pushed out. That means we need more teachers. That means we need more room in our schools. So, because Plymouth isn't built out yet. Plymouth has 64,000 people. We're 103 square miles. And people love Plymouth so much they're coming in by the boatload. Excuse the pun. And
Do they come into the harbor
Yeah,
and
they
get
come
off
into
at
the
the
harbor,
rock?
and
Do they jump off on the rock?
where do we put them? But
I would like to see the numbers about enrollments, because this is one of the things that on the Cape, there's a constant in the paper about schools not having to have an override. Now, an override is a bailout. I don't
Yeah.
care how you paint it, it's a bailout.
Overrides are tough.
And the reason for it is they are living beyond their means, and it usually, remember, school systems, the public doesn't understand, 86% of most school budgets are salaries, period.
It's health insurance.
Yeah, well, but I mean, those are the costs to the town. And when you have I just cannot imagine that any town property tax could have the proportion of that tax bill to people, many of whom are retired, because we have an older population.
Sure.
I know people on the Cape, for heaven's sake, they have a property tax bill that's more than all the mortgage payments they ever had.
A lot of people are
And
taking...
70% goes to the schools that are open 180 days a year. And 86% of that is salaries. You don't have to be a huge mathematician to understand there's a little bit of a problem, in my mind, with that.
I don't want to argue with you.
Oh, no, I don't want to argue. We're not arguing, but I mean, I'm labeled as anti-teaching, which couldn't be further from the
I have
truth.
a daughter that's a teacher.
No, I understand. But I
Yeah.
mean, when I hear, as I hear more than not, people who don't think they should have to, they should have to work in the summer, and that's what they.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
We have a phone call.
We do.
Hello, you're on Talk of the Town.
This is my 5th week in a row. Hi, Sharon, and what are you doing?
Yes.
5 in a row, I think. But usually I call, I have my facts right, you've got to admit. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you who the most overpaid people are in the United States of America, and I'll explain why. They're the CEOs of America's corporations. They make 354 times what the average American worker makes. That's back in 2012. It could be more today. They make more, the CEOs in America make more than any country on the face of the earth. And people say, oh, they take a lot of risks. The vast majority of CEOs didn't start the business where they worked. They have none of their personal fortunes at stake. Other than their personal job security, they take no risk whatsoever. But, oh, they must deserve it. No, they don't. They get their positions because of the board of directors. And the board of directors are staffed by their personal friends or acquaintances, or their people who owe their positions partially because of the CEO. That's why they're on the board. They're not like Don, you started businesses, and you're a businessman and started a business probably from scratch. But these CEOs, they risk nothing.
Well, I'm not necessarily following your point in terms of comparison. First of all, I don't disagree, but what I'm saying is the impact of CEOs numbers-wise. I mean, if you take the number of executives making these huge salaries, it's minimal compared to the impacts of the millions and millions of government workers at high levels, not teachers again, and not patrolmen and all that who work details to make their 100,000. I don't have an argument with that, but I am saying that when you talk numbers, CEOs are so small compared to the impact made by the tax-paying residents of towns, cities, and states. Now, here's something I want to tell you. The meals tax was raised a few years back, and it went from 5 to 6%. And it was in the Boston papers. Someone had the courage to mention they had given either the police or the Boston Fire Department a raise, and they said that the first 6 years of the increased revenue generated by the meals tax, which you and I pay when we go out to eat, which the restaurateur pays by having people think their check is getting higher all the time, that total revenue to the state was wiped out just by that raise to either the fire or the police department in one swoop. Now, is that right?
Possibly not, but
Well, no, but I'm just saying, and you talk about to me the most overpaid and the most unaccepted are professional athletes. Why don't we mention them? There's more of them than there are CEOs.
All right, that's.
I mean, and we've got people that are so patriot and Red Sox wacky that they think that it's okay to pay a pitcher who pitches 14 games. This guy Carlos, I read in the paper, he gets $32,612 every time he steps up to the plate, and he batted .270.
Yeah.
And we've got the public saying that's fine.
Right, but you don't have to go to a professional baseball game. If people stop going, the prices would come down. There'd be no.
Well, you don't have to buy a car from the CEO of General Motors either.
No, you don't. But to get back to CEOs, though, the reason I'm picking on them, people say they're the greatest job creators on the face of the earth. But actually, jobs are created by customers. And that's where income inequality comes in. If the customer, the consumer, doesn't have enough money to go out and buy products, then all businesses are going to fail. That's what the income inequality is all about. That's what Occupy Wall Street was up there going through all that stuff about. If the average American doesn't have enough money to purchase the products, the whole economy is going to fail.
Well, anyway, Jack Kennedy once said, again, the Democratic Party today conveniently forgets Jack Kennedy's conservative side. And, quote, he said, without a healthy business community, you can never have a strong economy. And the business community today, we're not talking corporate business. We're talking about small business,
Mom and pop.
which is the core of this country, are being murdered daily. I'm telling you, they're being murdered, and they're being murdered by taxes and by legislation.
Regulations.
Yeah, and regulations that are putting them out of business, that do not, in many cases, affect public employees like they do the private sector.
One sector of the economy that certainly literally went out of business was a small family farmer. That's all.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I know.
Conglomerates now.
We're trying to get them back, Charlie, into Plymouth. We have now a number of small family farms.
Thanks, Charlie, very much, though, for listening.
Thank you,
I hope
Charlie.
you'll listen on Thursdays.
Okay.
I'll look forward to your call, and we'll... yeah, thanks. And, speaking
What time on Thursday?
Kenny, 6 to 7, is it?
7 to 8?
I think it went to 6 to 7, didn't it,
6
Ken?
to 7?
On Thursdays.
Oh, good. They can get heartburn and eat dinner and listen to you.
And they get see, the beautiful thing about talk radio, for those that don't listen, of course, because it's unlike the newspapers and unlike the TV, you can do what Charlie did. You can question,
Sure.
and
He's really good with that.
And it's informative to the public that listens. We have tremendous
through
listenership.
conversation, I might learn something.
Yeah.
And, Charlie said something that struck me, and I'll remember that. Yeah. And it's the consumer, it's the customer. If you don't have the customers, you don't have a business. But I do agree that it's the small mom and pops that are dying here.
Well, they cannot absorb, and I speak from personal knowledge, not from feel-good, core value nonsense where they don't know what they're talking about. It's all about how they feel, and that is...
Okay, thank you.
The cost of doing business today is extreme.
High.
Extreme.
But it is for the public sector too, Don.
Yeah.
It is. Hello, you're on Talk of the Towne.
Hi, I just wanted to say hello. I just turned the dial, I saw them on TV, and it's his Donald McKeag's cousin, Linda.
Oh.
Well, Linda Lou,
Linda Blaine.
my Rooney girl.
Yes, so I had to say hello, 'cause I saw that handsome face on the TV.
Oh, I'm still hanging in. Just like Uncle Ken, I hope I last as long as your dad.
Who is
Hello.
Yes, he's doing quite well.
Oh, no, I've called him a couple of times. He's hanging in. What is he? He's going to be 90 next year, right?
90 already. Yes,
Oh, he is 90.
A little bit of a bout of a little bit of health problem.
Are you a Plymouth resident?
Actually, I live in Pembroke.
Pembroke. Oh, yes, we're seen in so many towns.
Yeah,
So.
no, I just turned the dial, and I like the discussion, but I just had to let him know that I was watching.
Oh, that's
that's great.
great.
Him as ever. I just wanted to say hi.
Her mom, my Aunt Marge.
Thank you so much for
Thank
calling.
You. I want to tell you, Linda will get a kick out of your talk about wonderful people. I was very fortunate. I had wonderful grandparents too. Growing up in Weymouth, and they lived right around the corner from each other. But my Auntie Marge was a hot sketch, and she did not like to cook, and they had 5 kids.
Wow.
And, but
How does that
but
happen?
we went to visit her when they had a house in Centerville. And we went over. My mother was alive then, and my wife and my sister, and we went over. And I said, Annie, they had bought the house about 3 years ago, and the oven, the stove, still had the blue tape on it. You remember that? And my uncle said, she just makes reservations for dinner, but. And the other thing is, she was afraid to sit in the front seat with him driving. He's a wonderful driver, so she sat in the back. We had our own Miss Daisy.
Oh, yeah.
She was
she
so wonderful.
She sounded like a hoot.
Oh, she was wonderful.
Yeah.
She
Absolutely.
loved you, Donnie.
Oh, I loved her to death too.
And we
Thank-
loved your mom, too.
Oh yeah, we had a wonderful. We were very lucky. Yeah.
Oh,
Colleen and Joni and I.
You know, I was telling Karen, she's written a book, and I've been trying to finish this book, which has been in the making for a long time, but now it's really coming along, and I talk about my grandmother, your grandmother.
Yep, my grandmother.
And she came from England, Blackpool, England,
Yeah.
and she played wonderful piano. I mean, any talent I have comes definitely for her. But to show you, when she was 12 years old, I think you probably know this, Linda,
Yeah.
she played in the pits of the movie houses when they were
Silent?
all silent movies.
Oh, my goodness.
And every time I see one of those Charlie and you hear the piano go,
You wanna see the
and that was
person.
her.
That was her.
When she was 12 and 13 and 14 years old, she was that
She
good.
never had lessons.
She
played
never had, and she could play.
by ear. It was her.
Yeah, and remember at the end when her hands were arthritic, and she could still play the marches and everything.
God love her.
She was wonderful.
Yes.
Well, nice to hear from you.
Yes, I had to say hello. So
Weymouth was a great place then.
Good to see you.
Nice to talk
Thank
to you,
you for
Linda. Thank you,
calling,
honey. I
Linda.
love you, honey. Give my best to the girls
I
too.
shall, dear. Kisses
Okay.
to you too.
Righto. Bye.
Do you see Linda? Do you see?
I don't, because everybody's split up now. You know,
Yeah.
we don't
You have to have a family reunion.
get together. Well, we should do it.
Linda, get a
Yeah.
family reunion
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Now, you've written a book, and
Well,
it's
I'm in the
not,
process,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't know. I know there's some kind of interesting, because I have had an interesting life in a lot of places, and it's poignant because it's, when you relook, I made a lot of mistakes, but
Who doesn't?
but I've also, it's the old story. If somebody asked you, would you change it? Well, I would have liked to not hurt some people I
Yeah.
hurt.
Always.
But as far as, when you revisit, you also have to remember the people you wouldn't have met, the experiences you wouldn't have had.
The growth you wouldn't have.
The growth you wouldn't have seen.
Yeah.
And like I say, that flying bridge, we had the boat slips, and when I sold that, I was very disappointed in myself, because I thought, oh boy, it was wonderful, and it was closed in the winters.
Who were you talking to? Why did you sell it?
Well, because the guy came in and he kept bugging me.
He had
and I'll
enough
tell you who
money.
it was. If those of you that may go, it's a wonderful, and he's a wonderful guy too. His name is Ralph Bruno, and he owns the Venezia restaurant. Although I just heard the other night he doesn't. So, and the Boston Wine Company next to it, up by the old. You go by the gas tanks there on the way. It's in the Ponset Circle, and he came in and said, "I want to buy this place," and I was tired. It was October. We had just closed. And I had gone through a divorce, and so I was drained, really.
Oh.
And so he kept after me, and I put this ridiculous price down. And I never thought, and I said, "I'm going to Aspen skiing," which I did. And I said, "If this is, this is it. Don't bring me any lawyers, and no, there's no adjustments here." And when I came back, don't you know?
He
bought the place, and I sold it. But if I hadn't, I wouldn't have gone to Hyannisport. I wouldn't have met so many of the people. With Teddy, we just did.
He loved to hear you play the piano.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we had I used to play Kansas City. That going to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I wish if I ever wanted a video, it would be when Ted would get up and dance and around the piano and sing Kansas City. Going to Kansas City, Kansas City, here I come. It was fabulous. But wouldn't that be a terrific video?
Wouldn't it be wonderful? And you went to Florida with them, too.
Oh, down at Palm Beach, and we had... I'll tell you, I don't know how much time we got. Were we supposed to?
Yeah, we got time.
Well, one of the great, of course, he used to call me up from all sorts of things. And in the book, I write about I call them, again, the random acts of kindness, which were so magnificent. But anyway, so he calls me, his secretary at the house in Hyannisport. I was out working in the yard. And so he said, the phone rings. This is before cell phones, of course.
Of course.
So now I got to go in and answer the phone, and it's Dolores, who was a wonderful gal, was his secretary. "Donnie," she said, "the senator wants you to come down." He said, "He needs you to crew," because we sailed all the time. So I said, "Well, I'm busy, Dolores. I'm begging off. I got too much to do, and I'm not going." So she said, "Well, all right, I'll tell him." Well, of course, 5 minutes later,
he would not take no.
Oh, no. He never did. But anyway, so he says, "All right, that's it. You're not coming down. That's it." I said, "Well, I mean, I can't be going down every time you need." Well, he said, "Then you'll miss the Jimmy Buffett band."
Oh.
And I said, "What?" He said, "Jimmy Buffett's down here with the band."
Yeah.
I said, "I'll be there in 20 minutes." So, of course, he laughs, and down I went. Well, unfortunately, when we got down to the pier, excuse me, Jimmy Buffett had just remarried, and she was pregnant. His wife was pregnant. And she was ill. So they said, "Oh, we can't go." And they went up to Boston, but the band stayed. So we went sailing, and I described that. But what's really amazing is when we came back, we had lunch, and of course he told them, and they were all in awe, and it was just they were terrific, the whole band. In fact, they had a girl that was about 5'1", and she was from North Adams, Massachusetts. And she played, now think about this, how talented she was. I know she's not with the band anymore, but she played violin or fiddle, she played trumpet, she played flute, and I think she played saxophone. I mean, she was unbelievable. So anyway, after lunch, Ted said, "Well, gee, would you like any of the piano and that I used to play for Mrs. Kennedy?" I played for Rose Kennedy, which was kind of cool.
Oh.
Yeah, but anyway,
Johnny.
So anyway, they get up and and they played, great. They were great, sang and everything. So when they finish, I couldn't believe it. Teddy goes, "Well, now Donnie and I are going to do a tune for you."
Oh.
Now, I hadn't done any tunes with him other than the Kansas City thing.
Yeah.
And I said, "There's no way I'm going to play."
Yeah.
So he said, come with me in the kitchen. So we go in, and he gives me the business. So anyway, we go out, and it had poured rain just a while back. So I said, "I don't know what key you're in. We'll look stupid." And I mean, I'm not a guy that can just...
Yeah.
So anyway, he said, "Come on, we're going to talk." So, we're going to do it. So we go in, and he said, "Well, we're going to do we'll sing in the sunshine because it's just the sun's coming up."
Yeah.
And fortunately, he was in the key of C,
Yeah.
And I sat in, and so and he started singing. And so we got through it, and as we're near the end, up gets the band.
Oh.
So they start playing behind me, and I did some boogie and all my junk. And then we did 2 more tunes. So what I mentioned in there is, isn't that something? I said, I know I'm the only man that ever played, the only person that ever played for Ted Kennedy when he sang with the Jimmy Buffett Band. So those are some of the little tidbits that I write about that might be interesting to people. I don't know.
I think they are,
they
because it's history and it's about someone.
It's a lot more than just, it's not about a Kennedy book. I didn't want to be a Kennedy book. So
I look forward to it.
Well, we'll see.
So you're going to be on Thursday night, 6 to 7.
6 to 7.
Live call-in show.
Yep. While people are having their supper, they could throw things at the screen.
You're going to be harassed.
I'm used to it. I've done it for 14 years on the Cape.
I know. But you know, radio is quite different from TV.
Yes.
And it has a whole different, I personally like radio better. And not that I don't like this, but radio, I think the voice comes across better because people are concentrating on what is being said versus what they see.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's great about radio is you can have a great face for radio.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a story about Merv Griffin. Merv Griffin, they called him, I don't know if it was him, but Velvet Voice or something voice. Yeah. And he was on the radio, and this woman came to the radio station, and he walked out. It was after the show, and she said, I want to see Merv Griffin. He has such a fabulous voice. I just know he's handsome. Well, Merv Griffin, now he's telling the story.
Yeah.
He was about 300 pounds.
Yeah. He was?
Yeah.
At the end?
No,
because he wasn't.
No, way back.
Oh.
300 pounds, pimply face.
Oh, dear.
And so he said to the woman, no, he's still inside.
Yeah.
So, you know, I never forgot that story, and he must have gone through a lot to have
Remember how good
realized,
those shows were? Those shows were wonderful.
Johnny Carson,
what a
the best.
Terrific. And those Dean Martin roasts.
See, Dean Martin was my favorite.
Oh, was he funny? Oh, was he?
I think, now don't kill me.
No.
I think Dean Martin had a better voice than Frank Sinatra.
Oh, don't you dare say that.
I knew it. But if you listen.
Sinatra was the best.
Well, I
and
love
speaking
Sinatra.
of that, have you, I've watched several, I recommend it. PBS does some wonderful things, but have you seen the Barbara Streisand special that she did in?
No.
Oh, look for it.
Where?
She did it in Brooklyn. It was a return to Brooklyn. I've seen it. I can't
stop. Is this
stop.
new?
No, I don't. It's been, it may have been done 9 months ago.
Oh, no, I didn't.
She's 70 years old.
Yeah, she's my age.
And she is spectacular.
Yeah, she is. Well, she's got enough money.
Well, politically, I don't care for her.
Push it in.
But she is the best. I mean, she is the very best.
Her voice, her stature, the way she does it, you just float away with it.
That song that she does, I think it was from Funny Girl. And I love him so.
Yeah.
You make her cry.
Yeah.
If you got any soul, it is so beautiful.
Do you like Bette Midler?
I do like Bette Midler.
I love Bette Midler.
I do, yeah. Well, a girl that I went to UMass with, Buffy St. Marie. Have you ever heard of her?
Yes.
Oh, yeah? She won the Academy Award for that theme song from An Officer and a Gentleman. She wrote that. She was from Belmont, Mass, I think she's full Blackfoot Indian. But Bette Midler recorded that.
I love Bette Midler.
And the eagle flies and all.
Yes.
And that tune, as a UMass, that's how I found that out. That tune was recorded, I think, by more artists than any song within that 30 years. So many
Wow.
recorded that one tune.
Wow.
But that's pretty nice that she won the Academy Award for that.
That's wonderful. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I have heard of her. Now, you live in Carver.
Yes. Next to
And-
the restaurant.
Yeah.
That was another clincher. I built 3 small well, I had a gift shop and 2 condos. And then the market fell, so
Oh, it was brutal.
it still isn't very good for condos, you know. And they were 1 bedroom, so I rent them now. And
Yeah.
but I love.
But they're
I like the
beautiful.
town of Carver. You know, it's.
It still has its
Nice.
woodsy charm. You know, we try very hard here in Plymouth to keep, you know, its character. And
Oh, Plymouth. Well, it was funny when you mentioned Charlie about farms. I went and visited my neighbor, friend Joe Germain, who I love. He's a wonderful guy, and he's been ill for a while, and he's hanging in. But anyway, I had to go to New Bedford, and I came through Rochester,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
drove. Actually, I got lost. But Rochester's a beautiful. That has a lot of horse farms and
Yes.
farms.
It's like Middleborough.
Yeah, and now of course all of the tulip trees are in bloom,
Yes.
and the azaleas. It was beautiful drive.
First tulip tree I ever saw was in Rockport,
Yeah.
and I asked the woman who owned the house what kind of tree it is.
Yeah.
She goes, "That's a tulip,
Tulip
tree."
tree,
Oh my
yeah.
God, it was magnificent.
And some of them get huge. you know.
It was huge.
Somebody told me there's a couple in Plymouth that are magnificent, that
Yeah.
are really huge.
They're rare. You
Yeah,
don't see
no.
them anymore.
Well, they don't get that big. They say they
it's
don't.
like a chestnut
yeah.
tree. I love
Yeah.
chestnut trees, but we lost a
roasting
lot
on an open
of
fire.
them on an open fire.
Jack Frost nipping at your nose.
Well, you know, your boy over there, he
Yes.
was raised 6-7 months on the Cape every year.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, because his father
Oh
played.
no, that's right. And
Yeah.
I have a photo somewhere
Yeah.
of that club when I was
Yeah.
12 or 13. Well, you know, I remember. Now you talk about on the Cape. It was the Veterans Hall. It's now condos, but my cousin, who was 3 or 4 years older than I, not related to Linda, but on my mother's side, he was playing saxophone, taking lessons, and he loved Coleman Hawkins. So they used to get these big names down
Yeah.
in the Cape.
They did.
And so he got tickets, and we went. I'll never forget it. And then I heard Louis Armstrong and Stan
They
Kenton.
all went.
They all went down.
Well, look at Elizabeth Taylor had a
Yeah.
house right there
yeah,
in
that's right.
Hyannisport.
Yep.
Beautiful house.
Yeah.
And that's the husband that died, I think. He was killed in an airplane.
Yeah. Michael Todd.
Michael
Yeah.
Todd. He did Around the World
Yeah.
in 2 days, whatever. What was it?
90 days.
I love that movie.
He didn't get it. I think he only made 30 days and he crashed.
Yeah.
That's
oh,
not
God
funny.
love.
No,
God
but you
love.
know, and that was the other thing in Asa Burr's house. I had the greatest piano player I think ever,
Yes.
Dave McKenna.
Dave McKenna.
And all of these people, and that's in the book about the different people I became friendly with because they came in. And
Yeah.
of course, I told you before the story of Lee Remick from Remick's in Quincy.
Gorgeous
She was
woman.
a very good friend of mine. And she used to come in with her husband. And Tony Bennett used to come in and sing. And Rosie Clooney was a very good friend.
yeah.
So we got a lot of, because they would be at the Melody Tent.
Yeah.
And they'd come into my place, and
Right.
it was so much fun.
Yeah,
It was-
where did the entertainers go? They would go to your
yeah,
place.
they did,
Yeah.
right after their show. And I'd keep somebody in the kitchen through the night so that if they got hungry, that I'd make
That's
sure they got something to eat.
wonderful.
Oh, I remember one night we stayed late,
4 or
like
5 in the morning.
2:30,
Oh,
and it was
2:30.
Rosemary and Martha Ray. Remember Martha Ray? Who was a big band singer,
Yeah.
you know. She was,
Yeah,
before she was
yeah.
and Rosemary Clooney told me, you know, Donnie, she said, Martha Ray had the best figure in Hollywood when she was young. She had the best, she said,
Honest
the
to
best
God.
body. And
Yeah.
Martha Ray was one hot ticket.
She was.
And so I had to drive them home at like 2:45. They were staying at Dunphy's
Yeah.
down the street.
Oh,
but-
yeah. They must have been
And
blotto.
Rosemary was, Rosemary, oh yeah, and she was, and you know, everybody wondered why she put on so much weight, you know, she really,
She was depressed.
Well, I did not know this, and she talked about it, that she was very close to Bobby Kennedy in Ethel.
That ruined her.
And she was there
Yep.
at the Ambassador when he was shot,
Yeah.
and she had a mental breakdown.
It ruined her.
She had a mental breakdown.
I think that affected a lot of people. I mean,
Well, that was.
if you remember, there were a lot of shootings during that period.
Oh, the '60s were
Which is awful.
really tough.
Awful period. 60s on one hand were wonderful. I mean, I got married in the 60s. I had 2 children in the 60s, 2 more later. But the whole world changed, Johnny. The whole world changed.
I was teaching school at Pioneer Valley Regional School in Greenfield, Mass., getting my teacher certification. I'd gone back to UMass, and 2 girls came late to class. So I'm practice teacher. I think they're, I said, where have you girls been? I figured they're testing me. And they said, oh, the president's been shot.
Oh.
And I said, that's a terrible thing to say. I couldn't believe it.
No, of course not.
And they started to cry.
Yeah.
And they ran down the hall, and I'll tell you, it was to this day, the saddest day and period. I mean, remember that. Those of us, I was like 21 years old, and
Yeah.
it was absolutely, without a doubt,
We mourned.
the worst. Well, because he was from Mass, and I had seen him with Jackie
Yeah.
coming out of Mass at
Yeah.
St. Francis Xavier in
yeah,
Hyannis when he was a senator.
Yeah.
And I liked his looks, he had
Yeah.
that wonderful...
Rugged yet
Yeah.
handsome,
Yeah.
chiseled but rugged,
Oh, he
manly
just-
manly man.
but
look.
he was, Ted had a lot. Bobby, I
Yeah.
always felt bad for, because Bobby never seemed to me to be a happy guy. I think he was that
Really?
middle, I think he was that middle child.
Oh.
And he just was always, I think, and he had all those kids, and I don't know, I just never thought, but Ted was like Jack, and they laughed at themselves,
Guess what?
What? It's time?
We have 2 minutes, and
Okay.
so we're going to talk about you.
Oh,
And,
again?
Again. And you're going to have a program, and it's going to be on Thursday nights.
Thursday nights.
6 to 7.
Yeah.
Live call-in, and I am sure
Is it on this station?
it's on channel 13, PAC TV. You're going to learn
Yes.
that PAC TV is wonderful. They are wonderful people.
Right.
The director, the staff, the board members, they're all great. They will help you tremendously. So
But they allow Ken Bukes to work here.
they love him too.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah. Well, he could be a curmudgeon.
Oh,
You got to
yeah.
get used to Kenny. But I wish you the best.
Well, I thank you for having me on, too.
And
so
anytime.
I hope you enjoyed it out there, so I hope the
I
people...
know they did.
Yeah.
A lot of people listen, they don't call, but I know they're going to call you.
Well, I told you, I was tickled. I was down to Kiskadee for coffee, and
Yeah.
I went to... And people had seen the ad that I was going to come on today.
Yeah,
So
because
that
I
was
put it
nice.
in the old
That was
Colony
nice. Yeah,
Memorial,
that was very nice.
and they see it. They want to know who's going to be on.
Of course, they also told me that they saw it in the paper and they were going to make sure they didn't have their TV on at 8 o'clock.
I know.
Oh, boy.
Well, I thank you, Don, and
thank you.
anytime,
Yeah,
and I
thank you.
wish you the best. And
Well, I think it might be fun, and I think, again, my key is to make it informative and participatory. I mean, I don't want people that just agree, but I want facts, not feelings.
We got the roll. I hope
Yeah.
our new sponsor is in, Salon Evolution. Tune in next week. I tell you the truth, I forget who's on, but it'll be good. And don't forget to vote this Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thanks for tuning in. See you in 7.